Welcome back to the Mixology Talk podcast. This is episode number 151, and today we're going to be talking with Angus Winchester, the head of education for Convent Brooklyn. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Mixology Talk podcast. This is episode number 151, and today we have the honor of having one of my friends, mentors, somebody I've had a great opportunity to work with in the past, Angus Winchester on the podcast. So welcome, Mr. Winchester. It's been a long time. It's great to see you.
It has been a long time since our paths have crossed. Thank you for having me, giving me the opportunity to talk about BCB, but also being flexible enough with my schedules, because you're in San Francisco, I'm in Hong Kong, so I appreciate the accommodations that you've made to, I don't have to stay up too late.
Oh, absolutely. And it's perfect timing. We just put the boys to bed. So, the planets definitely aligned for this one, for sure. So I've had the pleasure of hearing your backstory. But I'd love for you to kind of tell how you got introduced to the industry, what got you excited about education, and why you're so passionate about just bar education in general.
Well, it's a long story, but basically 30 years ago, I was just trying to earn a little bit of extra money to go traveling in between high school and university, working during the day, and somebody said, well, you should do something at night. Like, what the hell could I do at night? And they said, well, I'm working in a nightclub bartending, come and do that. I said, I've never bartended before. They're like, it's easy, anybody can do it. And yes, it was relatively easy 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. But as I got into it, I realized that it's a really easy job to do badly, and it's a really difficult job to do well, and basically committed myself to trying to learn as much as I can about drinkers and those that serve them. And, through then, the job allowed me to travel, work, around the world, and realized great global career, and realized how much there was to know. And so after a bit, stood back from bartending, moved more into management, then moved a little bit more into consultancy and education, because I just realized that as a bartender, I could only really impact one person, one guest at a time. Whereas to be an educator, educating 20 bartenders amplified the message like that. So, I've always been obsessed with knowledge. I'm curious. I believe you never learn less. And it was just at the right time as, we started to enter the second golden age of the bartender. And of course, education is the backbone of that. So I worked for 7 years as the global ambassador for Tanqueray. Worked obviously for 2 or 3 years as the VP of Education for Barmetric, which is where we work, working a little bit more with managers and owners. I won awards during that time, but I was then asked whether I could participate in BCB acting as the education director, which is now why I sit here in front of you.
Excellent. So just because you're a humble man, something I've known about you, with regards to the awards, I'll go ahead and just read off a couple that was in your bio here. Because they're very impressive. So, if I'm not mistaken, you got Best International Brand Ambassador in 2012.
Finally, after 4 years of being nominated, so
there you go.
Not really the best, but it was best that year.
Golden Spirit Award in 2014.
Oh, I can talk the hind legs off a donkey and persuade it to go for a walk afterwards.
And Best Bar Mentor in 2016.
Yep.
And finally,
one that really, I have to say, meant most, because, International Ambassador, you're good at your job. Spirited Award, you're good at speaking. Whereas theoretically, mentorship, I sort of figure it's almost like you're good at life. So that's the one I was really proud of, and, at the same time that we worked together. So
absolutely,
you can say whether it was justified or not.
Oh, I absolutely agree with it, for sure. And finally, the last one was Wine Enthusiast Best Mixologist in 2012. So the shelf is full.
I'm also, wasn't necessarily an award, but I'm one of I'm a tequila demigod with Julio Benevejo's agave program, and there's only about 60 of those.
Sure.
I was recently made a Grand Gin Guardian in Tokyo, which basically meant I get to wear a cloak. But that was quite a good one as well.
That's amazing.
Where's cloaks nowadays?
So, needless to say, you know what you're talking about. You've had many roles and you excel at all of them. So, this role with Convent Brooklyn is just one of those roles, one of those new mantles that you're taking up, and really kind of using the information and education that you've had in the past to kind of excel this industry. So I'm excited. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to go in the future and experience it. So, that being said, um, can you give us a little bit of brief history on Bar Convent Berlin? I've heard great things about it. Everyone has had nothing but great things to say about it. But can you bring us a little bit up to speed on kind of the origin story and kind of to modern day?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, BCB, as it was first called, Bar Convent Berlin,
Hmm.
slightly weird, but the German translation to English, that's how it sort of comes out. Started in 2007, and it was started by three bartenders who had basically set up a bartending magazine, Mixology magazine in Germany, because they realized that to grow a culture, bartending culture, you have to have some form of media to be able to collect the information, disseminate, and provide education. And that was quite successful, quite funky, and they decided that they should then expand into the worlds of bar shows, because there wasn't really a European bar show in those days, or a bar show in Europe. There was a
Hmm.
bar show, but they thought it needed something, so they set that up in 2007 in Berlin, a very cool, funky town. If you've never been there, definitely it's worth going for any serious bartender or drinker. And it grew and grew, went from a small, funky first area to a second, larger area, then a third area where it is now. And it just got to the stage where they realized that in order to do it justice, because it had become the de facto European bar show, that they really needed some professional help. They entered into a partnership with Reed, one of the largest exhibition companies in the world, and they ran it in partnership for a couple of years. And it grew to 3 days long. You know, I think there's something like 17,000 visitors. There's about 400 stands. They also added a coffee area, should we say, and a beer area as well, which I think very much reflect the interest that's going on in the spirit-led industry, shall we say, that we have nowadays. And they, by this stage, having run it for 12 years, they realized that they perhaps didn't want some of the hassle that was associated with it. So really stepped back, letting Reed drive it forward, but wanted to keep someone involved with it that had been involved with it, and also in particular with regards to the education. I had done many talks there before. I'd written for the magazine as well,
Hmm.
and I was looking for a new challenge. So they asked me to be the director of education for Berlin, which was fantastic. I mean, the opportunity to help curate the education for that amount of people was fantastic. But then it was obviously popular, a strong brand, and so Reed in the USA asked, you know, you can't just roll this out willy-nilly. They asked if that they could do a version, and so BCB Brooklyn was born, choosing Brooklyn rather than Manhattan because it almost reflects the funkiness of Berlin. And you know, New York needed a bar show after the demise of MCC.
Sure.
So we did our inaugural one last year, and obviously in what 5 weeks' time or something, we're going to be doing the second one, slightly larger, 35% larger than it was last year, which
Hmm.
obviously reflects on the success of last year. And then actually, not necessarily something you want to talk about a week later, we're actually going to do the first one in Sao Paulo.
Oh, interesting.
Sao Paulo. A lot of people think maybe we only do it in places that begin with P. But no, we're taking it down to South America for the same reasons that South America is underrepresented, we thought, for trade shows in particular, which is what
Hmm.
BCB is.
Excellent. Absolutely. Now, with BCB, what is the main focus of the seminars that you guys are curating?
Well, obviously BCB is slightly different from other bar shows because this is a trade show only.
Hmm.
There's no consumers coming to it. You have to provide proof of trade membership.
Oh, really?
Vendors, hospitality, distributors, through to designers, graphic designers, things like that. So
Wow.
if anyone's having any trouble getting ticket because they can't provide the right proof, get in touch with me and I will schmooze the way on that one, sure. But
Excellent.
I say it's very much trade focused. It's also different to something like sales where all the seminars are first come, first served. You can walk in, there's no reserving of it, no being sold out or anything like that. And over the course of 2 days, we have 65 different educational opportunities in 6 different areas. So there's very brief, there's a main stage, which is where we, the organizers, pay all the costs and expenses associated with it. No sponsors are needed for that one.
Hmm.
There are 2 demo bars, which is where the exhibitors, the brands, the sponsors, can also run education as well. So
Hmm.
I'm a huge fan of branded education, shall we say, because that's what I've done all of my life.
Hmm.
So also 2 taste forums, which is where you can go along and actually have more of a tutored tasting or learn about a spirit. We've done it slightly differently this year. We've actually partnered with the WSET. They have one of the areas, run a variety of education from base level. Not everyone is a super spirits expert, all the way through to the higher level stuff. We have an area where we have chosen certain seminars and also allowed some brands who wanted to do a tutored tasting of more than 3 liquids.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, we also have an area for basically brands, marketers, and entrepreneurs, because we realize that at any trade show, there's a lot of brand people there. And so talking about some of the issues affecting them, and I think we all know, you being a great example, we've never lived in a more entrepreneurial generation of bartenders, from products to services to podcasts, social media, and things like that. So we wanted to provide them some education as well. So 65 educational opportunities over 2 days, which I think is pretty special. First come, first served, walk in, stand at the back of the room. That's not a problem at all. But when we asked people to submit education, and I'll talk about that perhaps in a moment, basically there are 3 buckets. Idea of pure knowledge. So really increasing people's knowledge about a particular topic, subject, etc. The second one was creativity and entrepreneurship, because we think, creativity is such a driver at the moment, and entrepreneurship and business is big. And finally, real world problems and solutions, from issues of management, shall we say, all the way through to sort of slightly more social issues that are important, for the whole of society, but how do they reflect within our bit of the industry? Sure. There were 3 large buckets like that. And then what I really stressed was I wanted the education to be practical, relevant, and interesting. I wanted people to be able to sit in a seminar and go away with 3, 4, 5, 10 ideas that they could implement in their business, in their life. And not as opposed to just discussing an important topic and everybody agreeing in its important topic and going away feeling good about things. The second one, as I say, relevant. Can people use this? Is it important at the moment? Is it a trend coming up, or is it something that many people may be discussing, but perhaps in a slightly misjudged way? And finally, interesting. We wanted to have some of the greatest presenters that exist in our industry, because obviously it's a social industry and there are great characters. But we also wanted to give an opportunity for newer voices, also to try and discover people that perhaps hadn't participated in bar shows before because they were too busy doing the bits of things that we would like them to talk about. I think we've managed to cover all 3 bases. There's something for everybody, whether you're a novice or an expert, whether you're, in the back of house, front of house, whatever level you have. So we've tried to be a little bit of everything for everybody.
So with the tickets, this is definitely different from some of the other shows that are out there. Is it a 1 ticket gets you into all access ticket, or is it like?
Absolutely. I mean, you buy a ticket, you get into the show, you can visit all of the stands, all of the brands, network, obviously, which is always a very important thing that BCB has done particularly well. The idea of networking, catching up with friends, but also seeing new brands, seeing established brands, and most of the serious brand ambassadors are there, for example, but also the education. So you can step in, step out. Let's say there's no Zoom rooms may get full, but we have no problem with you standing at the back. And if you don't like it, get up, walk over to the next one.
That's pretty impressive, because I know that's one of the frustrations a lot of people have had in the past was, when some of the tickets go on sale, they're immediately gone. And even if it's something you're really interested in and you really need the advice and the expertise of the people in that room, there's no way of getting in. So the fact that anybody can go in with proper credentials, of course, and gain the knowledge and expertise that they need, that's extremely valuable. So that's pretty cool.
It's how BCB was, and we wanted to keep that sense of being open to everybody, as opposed to, as you say, certain other shows, the great seminars sell out very quickly. And then annoyingly, as someone who's participated in those, it says sold out, and then when you start talking, there are gaps in the room, and you think that's annoying. So let's say we try to do things a little bit differently.
No, that's fantastic. Now, I know one of the other draws to these bar shows is obviously the education is great, but some people are actually looking for kind of the after parties and the kind of the nightlife. Is that something you guys embrace as well, or is that more focused on purely education?
No, while we embrace it, we don't get as involved as perhaps other shows have done in the past, where you had to be in some way accredited or authorized and things like that. I think a lot of brands will be doing some sort of activations, whether it's pop-up bars, whether it's parties, things like that. But we embrace everything. We like a party. Thank you very much. As long as you turn up. Not with too much cocktail flu the next day, but say we realize a lot of people come to this show the same way they came to Berlin to also go to the bars in the city.
Sure.
And extra parties are great as well, but it's not something that we get as involved as other shows do.
Okay, perfect. Absolutely. Now, what, looking back on some of these seminars that you guys had last year, what were some of your favorites, like that were selected, and maybe some of the takeaways from those seminars as well?
Oh, again, I was very proud about what we did last year. There were a bunch of interesting seminars that I chose some of my favorite people that I wanted to hear what they were talking about, and also the topic. So, it was, we had Chad Arnold and Claire Sprouse in Ruth Community, who were very much together with, Ian Griffiths and Kelsey Ramage, the sort of the loudest voices and perhaps the most authoritative voices on sustainability.
Sure.
They really looked at things differently, getting away, obviously, from the whole plastic straw thing, but looking at basically the carbon footprint of the cocktails that were going on. And it's a topic that's quite close to my heart. But there was some really quite seriously geeky material there, talking about everything from the fact that your small locally made product may actually, if you look at cost per unit in terms of economic cost as well as environmental cost, may not necessarily be better than something that's being shipped from a long way away, but being shipped via shipping containers and things like that. So really looking at things like water usage for different categories. We all talk about straws. We don't necessarily talk about the amount of water used to grow raw materials and things like that. So that was really good. Obviously, my favorite one there was really Tim Etherington Judge and Claire Warner. Tim runs a company, shall we say, called Healthy Hospo. We're really looking to be, they called it How to Be a Better Bartender, but it was about mental and physical wellness. And that's something that is important. The amount of bartenders that are admitting they have problems with alcohol. Unfortunately, the amount of bartenders we've lost through sort of suicide within our industry as well as, it's difficult to be good for your guest if you're not feeling good yourself. So I always think, they've talked about a bunch of stuff from sniffing soil and how there's some enzyme within that makes you feel better. But the one I always loved was a nature bath, which is something that the Japanese do, where literally 20 minutes walk in a place where there are trees reduces blood pressure, reduces stress. And, if it's just walking down a tree-lined street as opposed to going to a forest and walking around. But there's some really good stuff talking about aromatherapy and literally how sniffs of lavender every now and then, can be, and just chill you out a little bit. Sure. We all know the bar industry can be quite a stressful place. And another one sort of tied with that is that we brought Julia Mamos from Chicago down to talk about Spirit Free.
Sure.
This was her sort of manifesto that mocktails were a little bit sort of demeaning for people, and we needed to reframe some of the terminology and then start to look at how true creativity can evolve within that space far beyond a mixture of fruit juices or muddle some fruit and throw something together. Right. So that was good. We also had a couple of great talks on culture. Hansen, that you would know, came along and talked about culture from a theory point of view, while Christy Pope talked about how she actually implemented some of these things in her bar as well. So I'd say that was great, and that was just the main stage. There were still 4 other stages after that.
That's pretty incredible. So afterwards, did you see a lot of bartenders kind of go about their way, go for a little nature walk and start sniffing dirt, like a nice pile of bartenders outside the door?
Being in Brooklyn, not a colossal amount of dirt that you would want to be sniffing, but the amount of people that followed up and asked questions, it shows that it really inspired them in some way. And every seat was always filled, and people said good things and compliments to me afterwards about the quality of the education. So sure. I would hope that we managed to achieve what we did.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting topics that don't get a lot of light of day in traditional conferences. So focusing on the health of the bartender for longevity in the career and just overall mental health, I think, is an explored topic, especially with how important it is for our industry. So that's really exciting that you guys are actually kind of talking about those things, and are kind of almost taboo to even show vulnerability in those areas. But
we have a seminar this year on rethinking our relationship with alcohol.
Sure.
because, I think there is that sense that the same way that we fetishize hard work within our industry,
Hmm.
both from front of house and back of house, that if you work less than 70 hours a week, you're not really trying.
Right.
But also that idea that because you're a bartender, you need to be a hard drinking, hard partying, hard living bartender. And, lots of people, very serious regarded in the industry, have showed us that that's not necessarily the case. And that some people's relationship with alcohol, even though it may be their job, is actually toxic. But it is possible to exist as a sober bartender and still thrive and succeed.
Sure, absolutely. So, what are some of the seminars that you're most excited about this year? And I know we're coming up on them in a couple of weeks. So,
Yeah.
um,
Oh, I mean, there were a bunch of very interesting ones. I mean, looking at it main stage, I'm really looking forward to Jackie Summers, Jack from Brooklyn, doing a talk about inclusivity, and especially inclusivity hiring. It's a
mhm,
topic I wanted last year, and we couldn't quite make it work in terms of timing and right people. But, I really believe, we talked about it earlier, I really believe that having a diverse workforce and offering opportunities to people that are normally marginalized is the key to success when recruiting and retention of staff is so difficult and so important in the industry now. So really looking forward to that. Uh, well, I actually discovered a woman called Martha Hoover, who has been a serious operator in Indiana for the last 28 years, I think, who, when I started to read about her, I was so inspired for the fact that she runs successful businesses and has done for some time, but does all of the stuff we now talk about as a trendy thing, but she's been doing it as just it was the right thing to do, from ethical sourcing of ingredients to culture to really running an open door in terms of harassment and grievances and things like that. And really looking forward to hearing what she talks about, because I mean, me, I can become a bit of a fanboy on certain people. And when I started reading about her, I was like, we have to get her for the show. Really looking forward to that. And it's not all completely serious. Phil Duff, Evan Freeman, and Gillian Vose talking about should pop up, pop off. Because as I say, there's so many guest bartending ships, pop up bars going on, and who does it really benefit? So
right.
it's that. That's just on the main stage. I'm looking forward to Belvedere, bringing people like Ryan Chetnawadena, Joe Schofield, Mia Johansson over, talk about their bartender collective. Alexandra Gabriel, Dave Wondrich, and Matt Pietik, Hotel Wonk, talking about Navy rums. Those are three of the biggest names in our industry, and rum is
Right.
hugely fashionable at the moment. Tasting wise, brandies, Calvados, Armagnac, and of course the rise of Californian brandy, or the
Right.
rebirth of Californian brandy, is fantastic. And something slightly quirky that I threw in, somebody suggested a topic on the spirits of Greece. And I had recently come back from Athens and have become obsessed with Sipuru, which is
Okay.
basically, let's call it Greek grappa, though they would be annoyed, it's Sipuru, but also talking about Greek brandy and also mastika and things like that. So there is an awful lot going on. If you are marketer, distributor, entrepreneur, cannabis and the alcohol industry, and how to be a disruptor in the brand world as well. So it's a lot to look forward to. My only worry is that I'm too busy running around from stages, making it all working to be able to sit down and enjoy it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, one other question I was going to ask you: what are some of the subjects that you would love to see in the future? Like,
Interesting. I mean, one of the biggest topics that I'm looking at, and something that I've got a little bit more scope for in terms of the way we're choosing topics, is technology. In terms of, we all think that automation is going to hurt taxi drivers and van drivers and things like that, but automation, AI, robots, MGM Resorts in Vegas have just announced, I think, that a lot of their dispense bars, they're going to have automation going on with it. And I
oh
really
wow.
think the rise of technology, be it robots, AI, all the way through to apps, and people using augmented reality now within cocktails and brands. I downloaded a Jack Daniel's augmented reality app that you click on the bottle and it goes crazy on your phone. But I think technology is something that we need to embrace, be aware of, because it is inexorable, and we think you'll never replace a bartender, and yet we are replaceable. Yes, the
Sure.
human aspect, but we don't need to be skilled and trained and knowledgeable mixologists. We could just be nice, friendly people. So it's something to definitely to sort of look at. And as you know, I'm a big believer in helping managers and owners. I would like to do more for them because you never outperform your leadership team. And it is harder and harder. Businesses are failing at a greater rate around the world, but more pressure, and there's more pressure on staff, and you have to be far more aware of the social issues and how you can, really create a diverse workforce and make everyone really shine and give them the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, those are amazing topics. You know how I geek out on the technology, so I would love to see some of that stuff too.
Well, what I would say, Chris, we'll run the same process next year for submissions. We have an open submissions policy. You go to the website, you fill out a form talking about who's going to be doing it, the title, especially the learning outcomes. I want to know that you have an idea in mind for what you want people to go away with. We had, I think, 140 submissions this year for 12 slots on the main stage.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, we decided that I needed some help. So this year we actually put together a seminar selection panel, all New York-based bartenders and owners. So Claire Sprouse, Don Lee, Alan Katz, Lynette Marrero, Jackie Summers, and Shannon, whose name? Shannon Mustafa, the author of the great new book on Tiki, etc. So the idea, when all the seminars came in, I asked them to choose their top 12 that they would choose if they were doing it solo. Then I put all those results together and we sat and debated it. Some were pretty much universal in terms of everybody wanted this one, everybody wanted that one.
Sure.
When it got down to 3 people voted for it, we sat and discussed, made sure that we weren't duplicating topics and things like that. But it's an entirely open submission process. The only way to do it this year, and it'll be the only way to do it next year as well. So submit, and who knows, we may be seeing you up on stage next year.
There you go. Now, I know you said it was about 5 weeks coming up here. So what is the start date of Bar Convent Brooklyn?
It is the 11th and 12th of June.
Okay.
Now, tickets bought online, you can buy them on the day, but between now and May the 3rd, there's an early bird special, $48, but that's for one day. There's no group discount, bulk buy discounts or anything like that. So before May the 3rd, $48. After that date, $65 until the day of the event, and on the day, it'll be $80. But you will have to prove that you are part of the industry. So, I don't know how you would do that necessarily, from a business cards to a paycheck stub, something like that. And as I say, if anybody's having any trouble, get them to reach out to me, bcbeducationdirector@gmail.com, and I'll track you down and I'll put you in touch with the right people. We just want to make sure that there aren't civilians there. We know that it's great educating them as well, but knowing that it's just trade makes it easier to do the education, and also make sure that people enjoy the drinks perhaps a little bit more responsibly. There's a fair amount of sampling going on there.
Absolutely, yeah. What is the favorite social media handle for the platform in general? If people wanted to follow it to kind of keep up to pace with what you guys are doing over there.
I think BCB Brooklyn, our Convent Brooklyn, and then after that, most of the posts I see from them are, hashtag Mixology, hashtag education, but let's say BCB Brooklyn or Bar Convent Brooklyn are the hashtags to really look out for.
Perfect.
Hopefully
Excellent.
in the future, stellar education.
Excellent. And then one more time, how can people get in touch with you? What was the email address again?
bcbeducationdirector@gmail.com.
Perfect. Great. So we'll have all those in the show notes for Mixology Talk podcast, episode number 151. So if you missed any of those, we'll definitely have those there for you. And yeah, it starts in a couple of weeks, but looking forward to the next one already.
Indeed. Cool. As I say, would love to have you there, Chris. It'd be fantastic. We actually have this year the people from Beautiful Booze giving a talk about how to build and nurture relationships through social media, because love it or hate it, it's not going anywhere, and it's an incredibly useful tool, but used badly, it's an incredibly harmful tool.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you again, Angus. It's always great to see you and talk to you, and we'll definitely try and get out there, and I'm sure hopefully a lot of people will as well, and get their education on.
Cool. Thank you very much, Chris.
All right. Cheers. Definitely thanks again to Angus Winchester for joining us. And if you're interested in going to Bar Convent Brooklyn, you definitely want to go check them out. It's going to start on June 11th and 12th at the Brooklyn Expo Center, and you can find out more information on their website over at www.barconventbrooklyn.com. Now, we'll have some more podcasts for you in the future, but until then, have a great shift and cheers, everyone.